Happy Safer Internet Day, everyone, and welcome to our session. My name is Carrie, Neill, and I am National PTA's Connected Ambassador. Tonight, we are so excited to have two experts in the world of digital safety joining us to talk about building a positive framework to help parents and caregivers prepare their kids to be successful in a digital world.
Probably the most questions from parents is around this topic of balance, of finding balance. And it usually starts with this question: how much screen time is okay for my kid who is blank age? And I want to take a minute. Hopefully I won't offend too many people here, but I need to break the news to you. So you might want to sit down if you're not sitting down. Screen time is actually a really problematic approach for limiting technology use. And the reason that it's so there's a bunch of reasons why it's problematic, but one of the reasons that it's problematic is that it assumes that all of the activities that you do on a digital device are of the same value. And nothing could be farther from the truth. Here's just a variety of activities that I clicked. Here's in the middle is a pretty mindless game that offers really very little value other than wasting some time. Over here on the left, there's an app where somebody's learning a language. Down here, this girl is making a fun movie. Over here, top right, you have these two girls that are talking to a family member on Zoom. Down in the bottom, somebody is reading. I think we can all, and we can come with 100 more types of activities, right? But just in these five, I think we could all agree that these activities have different value based on all kinds of things: how much time we have at the moment, what other things we should be doing, what it's doing to help us be a better person. And so if we talk about screen time as a set time, it teaches kids that all screen activities are of the same value. And it would be a little bit like, maybe the best way I compare it is if we were eating and pretend that we had, food time. And so we said, look, we're not going to talk about how some foods are better than others. You can eat some vegetables and some other things and then have a little dessert. Nope. We're just going to have food time. And for the next hour, you can eat as much food as you want. You can eat Twinkies the whole time. Doesn't matter. It's just food time. That sends the wrong message to our kids. We don't want them to eat Twinkies for an hour. We want them to learn to eat healthy food, and we want them to recognize when they're full. Now, it's not going to happen right away. It's going to happen over time as we work with them to do it. And so the same thing happens with screen time. By the way, we don't have time to go into it, but all of the research that is used, if you hear people citing screen time, it's all based on TV watching, which is very different. That's one type of digital activity, and it doesn't apply to most of the activities that are happening in the digital world. So what are some better ways to find balance? Well, the main way is we need to evaluate each individual activity. And I know that's a bit more work. I know it's not as easy as just setting the timer, but what it means is we say some activities we should have a long amount of time, right? And others probably more than a few minutes is enough. And so that is the conversation we need to have: is what are you doing, right? Don't lump all activities that are digital into a screen. And if there is an activity that you feel is getting out of balance, let's say a game that's being played for hours and hours on end, right? Instead of saying, stop playing that game, what we need to articulate is to say, what else should we be doing in order to have balance? As I was writing the book, it was crazy. I was talking to parents and they'd say, I tell my kids to stop playing that game. And I would say, I'd talk to the kids, I say, but did your parents ever suggest another activity that they'd rather you do? Right? And they often said, no, they just said, don't do this. It's always don't, but never what do we want them to do, right? So as a parent, it's very important, and a teacher, to be able to say, hey, it feels like you've been playing that one game for a long time. Seems like it's getting out of balance. Wouldn't it be good if we also spent some time with your friends or with your family, or do another digital activity, but a digital activity that is healthier than one that is taking too much of your time? My kids, if it was left to their own devices for what to eat, they would eat macaroni and cheese for 3 meals a day for their whole life, right? It is just how the world works. But that's not okay. And so we as parents, we still eat macaroni and cheese sometime, but we expand their palate. We eat some broccoli, we eat some chicken, we eat some other things, and we help expand their palate. That same idea is an important thing for us to do with our kids. And so one of the things that I talk to parents about is I often say, how many of you recommend, and this is the question I asked, how many of you recommend books to your kids? And then they would say, oh, we always recommend books, and here's how we do it. And they give me this whole process of how they recommend books to their kids. And then I would say, how many of you recommended apps or activities on the devices for your kids? And often there was this silence. Well, we never have, right? So where are the activities coming from? All of your activities on your device, if that's the case, are coming from other kids at school. I don't know, advertising. That is not how we want our kids to find digital activities. And so as parents, one of the things that's really important for us to do is expand our kids' digital palettes by recommending to them different activities that they can do in virtual spaces. How can we help kids become amazing humans in a digital world, right? We need to aim a little higher. I think sometimes when we talk about the tech world and we say, well, how do we just keep them safe, right? Just being safe is such a low bar. I mean, yes, we want them to be safe. Don't get me wrong, but really, is that the best we can do? It's sort of like, I was a teacher for years, and we'd go on field trips, and it would be like, if I could just imagine saying to the parents, we're going to go on a field trip, and our goal is just to not get in an accident on the way there. Like, really? Because you could just not go on the field trip too, and that would raise the bar. Yes, let's be safe. Of course, we're going to be safe, but we can do better than that. And so how do we help kids become amazing humans in a digital world? And then the second part of that question is, what's the role of parents and teachers in making that happen? And I'll share some things. And these are some of the quick, I pulled out a couple of the ideas from my book that I want to share with you. The first thing that I'll share is this idea that we need to be very careful in our messaging. And sometimes our messaging can be far too negative. We often will say, LeeAnn knows I talk about the list of don'ts, right? Don't do this. Don't spend too much time online. Don't play that game. Don't be, bully. Don't just all these don'ts. The problem with don'ts, the don't mentality to creating a healthy digital culture, is these are complex skills, and you can't practice not doing something. You don't learn that skill by saying, well, let's not teach math until 8th grade and then we'll get to it, right? It doesn't work that way. In fact, the opposite is true. You need to have kids have access to complex topics early on, but you do it with structure, with scaffolding in little bits, and you build trust along the way. And so those are some of the principles that are important here.
I am excited to introduce everyone tonight to this wonderful tool brought to us by the National PTA and Norton LifeLock that can really help families build this mutual understanding around technology use and expectations. So my business partner's name is Kristen, and she and I have been working with the National PTA for just around 6 months, give or take. And in doing so, we had the privilege of connecting with hundreds of parents from diverse communities all over the nation. And we did that through national surveys. We got hundreds of respondents to answer questions about technology use. And then we held multiple focus groups to really dig in deeper. And we talked with parents about, what it's like to parent in the digital age. And so we asked them questions about, what are the things that concern you about parenting in the digital age? What are your experiences? How have you handled missteps with technology? We asked those kinds of things. And we heard a couple themes loud and clear, but we heard a lot of things, but a couple of things really stood out to me that I'll share with you. The first one is that parents said overwhelmingly, we know what technology behaviors we want our kids to have. We know what we want them, we know what we want. We know what we want our kids to be doing with technology, but we're not really sure how to make that happen. We're not really sure how to get to that end goal. We know what we want, we don't know how to get there. Okay, that's number one. The second thing that we heard loud and clear was that parents often reacted to technology missteps in a very reactive manner. And what I mean by that is they said, when we said, well, how do you handle technology, behaviors that you didn't want to see? Oftentimes their answer was, well, after it happened, that's when we had a conversation about it. That's when we, figured out what, maybe we issued a consequence, maybe we took the technology away. But that theme is that we waited until something happened and then we talked about it. Fewer parents said that they actually took an approach to have those conversations right from the get-go, to set their children up with the technology. So that's why I'm really excited to talk about the SMART tool, because the aim of the SMART Talk tool is to help parents have positive and proactive technology conversations about, with their children. At the end of both versions, it creates that family technology use agreement based on the answers that you input as you were going through the tool. So that remains the same. One thing that we heard from parents overwhelmingly is that they wanted the SMART Talk tool to differentiate the conversation prompts depending on the age of the student. Because I'm going to have different conversations with my 17-year-old with my 7-year-old than I am with my 14-year-old who's going to start using social media, who has a cell phone. They're going to be different conversations.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate all the things that you were saying. It made me feel more comfortable. I'm sure my 13-year-old's so excited that I'm ready to have more conversations with her about it. But thank you so much. There were some other questions, and I know we'll work with the team to get answers to those and send those out to the attendees. So thank you everyone for coming. Thank you to our speakers. And this concludes our session for tonight. And I just wanted to thank everybody for being part of such an important conversation and for celebrating Safer Internet Day.